And so it begins here in Beijing, China rolling out the red carpet for President Trump. We watched it here 1 hour ago. Big grand welcome kicking off a two-day summit with serious issues and implications on the line. So good morning, good evening from China. I'm Bill Hemmer back here live in Beijing. And Sandra, nice to see you again. We'll find out what we get along the way. How you doing and good morning back
We
there.
will indeed. It is 9 o'clock in the morning here on the East Coast. And Bill, good to see you out there. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. Dana is off today. This is America's Newsroom. So it started, Bill, with all that pomp and circumstance. We watched it together. But they will soon be getting down to brass tacks. There's so much hanging in the balance at this U.S.-China summit. The world's two biggest economies have a lot to discuss on trade, on technology. And then there is, of course, the issue of Iran.
Yeah, we'll see where the ball moves on that, if at all. China's the largest buyer of Iranian oil, and right now a fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran hangs in the backdrop. According to the president, before he left Washington, that is not, however, the focus of this trip.
I have a great relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to remain that way. We have a lot of things to discuss. I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control. We're either going to make a deal or they're going to be decimated. So one way or the other, we win. But we're going to be talking with President Xi about a lot of different things. I would say more than anything else will be trade.
Wilder. Okay, now Aishah Hasnie reporting with me here live in Beijing, and hello to you.
Hello to you.
Go ahead and
good evening. Good morning. We don't know still. Hey, the president has previewed what he's going to talk to Xi about first, and that is trade. He said that he's going to ask Xi to open up China to business with these business executives that he's bringing along with him in this big delegation. We just saw the arrival. Let's put that up on the screen there. He was greeted by the vice president of China and 300 Chinese kids, Bill, waving the China and U.S. flags. He says trade is the top priority for this state visit, not Iran. Although Iran will come up, he plans to have a long talk with Xi about it. But he says that he does not need China's help when it comes to Iran, noting that China is the one that has a lot to gain from the end of this conflict.
No, I don't think we need any help with Iran. We'll win it one way or the other. We'll win it peacefully or otherwise. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, every single element of their war machine is gone.
So here's what we expect to be on the table for these talks. China wants to lower tariffs. They currently have a 10% tariff on them. They want to talk about beef sales, soybean sales, artificial intelligence will come up, rare earth minerals for chips. Taiwan will come up. It is the largest chip maker in the world. And talking about chips, Bill, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang jumped on aboard Air Force One in Alaska during the refueling. Of course, NVIDIA's most advanced chips, those are used for training AI models. They haven't been able to get those into the Chinese market just yet because of U.S. restrictions. We'll see if that changes after these talks. And the president, like I said, will be here with a lot of CEOs. They're on your screen right now. Elon Musk among them. He was on board Air Force One. Others arriving separately here. Trump True Social while aboard that he wants Xi to do business with these folks. So we will see if that is the result of these talks.
You know, you ask a different analyst, you get a different answer on the question of Taiwan. Yeah. It'll certainly come up. But the Americans have always said, Aishah, is that any time they talk with the Chinese delegation, Taiwan
Absolutely.
Is part of the conversation.
I spent some time in Taiwan a couple years ago, and they have a completely different perspective. The Chinese, just a couple of days ago, actually put out a statement saying that this is going to happen, that Taiwan really does belong to them, has historically always belonged to them, and secession talks really don't need to come up. The Taiwanese feel very, very differently about this. I spoke with the ambassador of Taiwan to the U.S. a couple of days ago. I asked him if he feels like what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is giving Xi more confidence to perhaps do a blockade of his own in the Taiwan Strait, which would be devastating for the global economy because Taiwan produces the most chips in the world. And the ambassador told me, you know, he should think twice. He should look at what happened in Venezuela, and he should look at what's happening in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. would not let that happen.
Good to see you again.
You as well.
Along for the ride as we go,
Absolutely.
right?
Here we go.
All right, I want to bring in Dennis Wilder now, former NSC director for China. You know this topic very well. Sir, good morning to you back there in the U.S., and thank you for your time. I was struck by what you told our producers. You believe both leaders coming into this believe that they have the high hand. What does history tell you about that?
That's right. Well, historically, it can be a good thing. Chairman Mao thought he had the high hand with Richard Nixon. Nixon thought he had the high hand with Mao because Mao was under pressure from the Soviet Union. And it turned out that they could find complementary reasons to move the relationship forward. And you're in Beijing today as a result of what they did in 1972. So even though both of them have their own calculations, these are two very confident leaders. These are two leaders that know they run the most important nations in the world. They know that they have the ability to shape history. They're very aware of that. And so this is a fascinating meeting.
Okay, Dennis, what is the main goal for the U.S. president? Conversely, what is the main goal for President Xi?
Well, for President Trump, he said it is trade. We have still a $200 billion trade deficit with the Chinese. What he hopes is that China will open its markets more. As he talks about, it's not about free trade, it's about fair trade. And right now, the Chinese hold American companies out of key sectors. One of the people on this trip, for example, is in the medical area. And American medical science has a lot of opportunities in China. Obviously, you talked earlier about Boeing aircraft. There may be a deal for 500 Boeings, beef, soybeans, but there are a lot of other things that Americans can sell to China if it opens its markets. But at this point, it keeps some American products out because they don't want them competing with lesser quality local products. On the Xi side,
my
this
sense
is about
coming
geopolitics.
into this is, I'm sorry about interrupting you, but it's my sense that these two men are still in the state of relationship building. Continue on, President Xi, for interrupting you.
That's right. That's right, and you shouldn't look at this as a one-off event. Remember that there is opportunity this year for 4 meetings. Obviously, the president has invited Xi back to Washington for a return visit, but there's also the G7 summit and the G20 summit this year. I have never seen a year where the two leaders would meet more often, and they have that in their minds. So let's not look for everything to be resolved in this visit. That's unrealistic, but it lays the groundwork for a pretty interesting year in the relationship.
Yeah, well stated. Listen to Senator Lindsey Graham and Secretary Hegseth on Iran's influence or lack thereof with regard to China, and also China's influence with Russia. Just listen to this exchange here.
Does China buy 90% of Iranian oil, Ms. Secretary?
China buys a very large percentage of
Okay,
Iranian
90% is pretty large. So does China buy, are they the largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas?
I would imagine they're up there, Senator.
They are. They're the largest. So President Trump, when you go to China, realize that the person you're talking to is propping up Russia and Iran.
So now there is a common belief on the U.S. side that China and President Xi have massive sway with Iranian leadership. I don't necessarily take from your comments that they do. With regard to the IRGC, how much influence does Beijing have today on the war front, sir?
Well, I think President Trump has calculated this well. The reason he's saying he's not going to go to the Chinese, in part because we are in a good position, but in part because he knows they really don't have the kind of sway that some people would say they have. Tehran sells oil to China, but remember, we are talking about a theocracy versus a communist state. They don't have a lot in common in many ways. Sure, China wants the Strait of Hormuz reopened. It would like to get back to selling weapons and buying cheap oil from the Iranians. But really, there's not an awful lot of evidence that they have a big pull with IRGC or anybody else.
Former CIA Deputy Assistant Director for East Asia, Dennis Wilder, you spent a lot of time in this part of the world. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. Thank you, sir. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.